Hello, everyone. We have an incredible guest with us today. Charlene Li is a leader. She talks about AI, but she's also knowledgeable on how to really encourage others to use Gen AI in the space. So, Charlene, I know you're working on a book right now. You're super busy and so appreciative of your time. Tell us more about yourself.
Sure. I live in San Francisco. I have been in the technology and business space for a couple decades now. I am very passionate about catalyzing transformation with all of these technologies, but more importantly, with leadership so that we can maximize human potential.
Maximize human potential. How do you think AI helps us maximize human potential?
Oh, so much. It's going to take over a lot of the routine work that we don't like doing. So just help us extend and augment the work that we do. But it's also very importantly, I think, helping us be better thinkers, writers, creators, leaders, because it can serve as a sounding board for the way that we think and the way that we create. And so it's going to extend what we do as humans even more and allow us to do things that we never thought we could do before.
I have to ask, do you have an assistant or an AI assistant that you run your ideas past, or how do you have that set up for yourself?
Yes, I have a couple of them. I have a few that I have set up where I've given it very specific instructions and I've uploaded a lot of my content, so different types of my content. And so, depending on if I'm doing writing, I'll give it writing samples. If I'm doing some research, I'll give it all my interview files, for example,
Okay.
and I'll be able to query it because I can't remember everything that I wrote and I can't remember everyone I interviewed, but AI can. And the other thing is it just helps me just get to the ideas a lot faster. So the ideation, I can give it a rough outline of some ideas and have it turn it into a more sophisticated outline. I can give it an entire finished piece and having me back some feedback on how to improve it. And it always gives good feedback. And my editor loves it because she gets documents that are extremely clean. So she can focus on really editing it rather than looking at grammatical issues.
So I have to ask, do you have a preferred large language model or tool that you use? There's so many tools
I
out there.
Yeah, I typically have ChatGPT, Claude, and Google's Gemini up on my browser, and I use Perplexity too as well, and Bing to some again depending on the task. Typically, I use Claude for writing. Sometimes Gemini surprises me. Sometimes ChatGPT surprises me. So I take the same prompt, I put it into all three of them, and see which one is doing better. I'll just see which one is giving me better results, and then I'll have a conversation with that particular LLM. So
Oh,
I'm
I love it.
LLM agnostic.
Have you ever fed the results, say, for Claude into Gemini and seeing how what it interprets and what it does?
Yes, I do it all the time. So if one engine writes it, I use another engine to evaluate it.
Mm, I love that. So it's almost like QA agent and writing agent, and they have their own tasks and they do their own thing. And I love Claude too for writing. I feel like that's the one that always gives me the best in terms of outcomes when it comes to writing. So if someone's just getting started, sometimes we forget we're so into this and we're part of this amazing transformation, but there are people that are just getting started with this journey. And they want to know, like, how do I get started and how do I learn more? What do you advise?
I advise them to do three things with AI. And until you can discover how to use AI and it starts transforming the way you work, it's very difficult to get into the next step. So I encourage people to create content with AI. So whatever it is that you have to create content for, whether it's an article or blog post, some social media, or it's presentation or a speech, then go and use AI to help you brainstorm that content, maybe even have it write it. The second thing to do is to do research. Instead of going to Google, next time try using GPT. For example, my phone will not stay connected to Bluetooth for some strange reason. So I literally put it in like, this is my situation. And instead of returning me back 10 blue links, it says, try these things first, second, third, and fourth. Next time you have something you would like to get some feedback on or brainstorm with, you can have a conversation with AI.
What does that look like, a conversation with AI?
So we like to talk about prompt engineering. And I
Mm,
think that's the wrong way to think about it. Prompt engineering is basically a shortcut way to have a conversation. And so the way to think about this is if you could have a conversation with somebody, and it could be anybody, who would you want it to be? Tell the LLM, you are a book editor. You are an expert on Bluetooth, whatever it is. And it focuses itself instead of thinking about everything in its knowledge base, it focuses on one slice of it. So there are ways that you learn to practice to have a conversation with the AI to get the best results that you want.
I love that. A lot of times I don't have all the words. I just have the concepts for what I want. And I just type them out. And like, this is what I'm thinking, but can you put this into a blog post or can you create something around this or give me research and reference material, thought process? Colleague, right? It's, hey, I saw somebody by the water cooler. I have a few questions. How do you do this? How do you do that? What did you find most impactful? And we're used to having these conversations. And now we just talk to the robot or the large language model the same way, right? You spend a lot of time working with leaders, CIOs of the companies, talking to them. What are you seeing out there in terms of their needs and transforming their enterprise using AI?
Their biggest question right now is what can we use AI for? How does it create value? And the problem is, I think they're looking at it abstractly. They are want to get some use cases that they can then experiment with. And they're starting from a very low level, looking at productivity and efficiency. I think they're missing an opportunity where they could be looking at it from a transformation point of view to say it can give us some significant advantages with all of the tools that it can do, all the things it can do, taking on routine tasks. It does give so much productivity and efficiency. But everyone else is going to get that at some point. So, how do you create sustainable competitive advantage with AI? That your other competitors can't get onto. So there is definitely a first mover advantage. But what is your existing strategy? How do you plan to win? Where are you planning to play? And when AI capabilities, can you actually play in new markets and have new business opportunities that come up? So I think about this is why the book is called Winning with Generative AI. It's not about just how to use generative AI, it's how to use it to win, how to be successful, how to serve your customers better. So I think that's the right question to be asking, not, "Oh, so what can AI do?" No,
Right.
it's
Right.
actually much bigger than that.
So let's talk about this question of how do you serve your customers better? What are some ways that someone could go about figuring that out or using AI for that purpose?
Let's just say customer support,
Yeah.
customer experience, as some people call it. If you use a chatbot or anything, you probably run into this wall very quickly where you
Right.
can't get your answers done. So if you can understand you typing or even speaking using natural language processing and generative AI, it can just generate the responses based on its understanding of the knowledge base inside the company. And even just cleaning, we all know knowledge bases inside of companies are also just rife with duplications, contradictions, and go through all of them like, here are all the contradictions. Got to go fix them. So there are a lot of different things that can improve the quality, the efficiency of customer experience and customer service. And that's just at the direct level. I know one organization, they realized that they just didn't have enough people to answer all the calls. And they could tell from the phone number that a call was not going to be very productive. So they just wouldn't answer them. And then so they put a voice AI against it and built it within a week, was generating hundreds of thousands of dollars in the first month. And these were all calls that they were not answering. And so we're
Right.
able to qualify them and then pass them over to a human person. But at least they answered the calls versus
Yeah,
ignoring them.
exactly. Because that's the worst thing you can do in customer service is not to respond to customers. I remember a time in the call centers where each phone call would cost upwards of $3 to $5 to just answer. So now we're looking at reduction in cost and better experience because hopefully you can personalize some of those answers too based on other informations in your database.
I think when it comes to customer experience, it's also understanding your customers. So you're getting a lot of feedback from them and hundreds and thousands of tens of thousands of feedback, making sense of that in a very complex way, understanding that in real time and making adjustments in how you're responding to people and your products or understanding that there's a quality issue, under taking all of that information and being able to understand it. And then very importantly, put it to use. Right now, you have a lot of data scientists inside an organization, but I call them the inner sanctum of analytics. You
Yeah,
can't go in there. You can
right.
politely, gently knock on the door, like, I have a question. Can I ask this? And they're like, go away. We have more important things to do.
Yeah.
And I think generative AI can put a lot of that power of analytics into the hands of people who could actually use it to make decisions. You still need them to actually build the programs and to ask the novel questions that haven't been asked. But to be able to ask your data of all the questions you want to know that you just couldn't ask because it was too difficult and too time intensive to do it.
It's really putting the power in the hands of the business users, right? Because so long, business users were dependent on IT to create something for them. Sometimes we didn't know what it was, right? But now we can iterate very quickly and figure it out with the help of AI, like the direction, or just try different experiments at a much cheaper cost.
Exactly.
I love that. So tell me more. What is that? You're writing a book? It's taking up all your time, and I can't wait to read it. I'll definitely be one of your first readers. I want to know more about Winning. That's the name of the book, Winning with Generative AI. Where do you think companies, and you obviously mentioned some of the use cases, but how do you see winning with generative AI?
Again, it comes down to how do you create value? And the reality is, there's no secret to this. We just talked about two examples. You're not the only person who can do this. All of your competitors can do it too. So it's just a matter of time before they develop these capabilities. You might have a first mover advantage in that you can do it sooner than others. That can give you just that little bit of extra advantage to use these capabilities to develop new businesses, to go into new areas, do things in a new and different way. That's going to give you competitive advantage because otherwise, everyone's going to be using it. There's no differentiation from one person using another one, even if they have custom models and custom data. So I think it's very important in thinking about generative AI as you're thinking about initiatives to not think about use cases like individual ways to use AI. Think about it as applications of AI that are going to help you achieve competitive advantage. That's why we think about it as winning. Where are you going to play? Why are you playing there? And then how are you going to win? And AI with the new capabilities, you have to think about where are the new places we could potentially play with these capabilities and how are we going to move into those areas and how are we going to win with it.
One of the things we always talk about in business is the competitive moat. And what does that mean, winning with AI? And if it's so easy for you and your competitors in the future to use Gen AI to look at new markets, look at how to best serve customers, what is going to differentiate you taking over or creating the competitive that nobody else can replicate
I
it?
look at it this way. The difference here is about the adoption of AI inside of your organization. As if everyone is going to adopt it in the same level. I'll give an example. One CEO I talked to said that they committed to training everybody who's a knowledge worker, who's basically everybody in the organization, all 600 people or so, to use it. And they were giving training and access to tools. And then there was a dashboard next to each person's name. And there would be a light, like a green light, meaning using AI to help you get your job done. Fantastic. Yellow light, if you're still trying to figure out, but you're trying things. And a red light, meaning you're not doing anything at all with AI. And then he laid a line in the sand. And he said, in 6 months, there will be no more red lights at this company.
Mm.
You either have moved into yellow and green, or this is not a good fit and you will not be here anymore. Our expectation is everybody here is going to be AI ready and AI capable within the next 6 months. I don't hear very many companies saying that. And imagine a company that dedicates itself to say, this is where our strategy is going to be. We're all going to use AI. We're going to figure out how to use it to make our jobs better, our company better. That is going to be a competitive advantage for a certain period of time. So if you can do this as an organization, I in particular encourage companies to train the top two levels of their leaders on how to use AI. Because if they can understand and move from just knowing that AI is powerful to doing it and using it, then they can lead with it. They can lead their organizations as leaders to say, this is how we're going to use AI in order to win.
What does that training look like? Does that mean that you can write a prompt and interact with AI on a daily basis?
It'd be those three tasks I talked about before. We talked about creating content, doing research, and using it as a thought leader.
I
And
love
so train them on how to do that as a starting point. And once you are able to do all those three things, you look at your tasks and your job every single day and say, how can I use AI to make it better? It opens up the possibility. You also can create a culture of learning inside your organization where you're sharing what you're doing with each other. And as leaders, you're sharing and seeing your peers use this, and not only for themselves, but also for their teams and departments. So it becomes this overall culture of learning and adopting, becoming AI ready, AI first. I'm very keen on leaders doing this because there is no substitute to understanding and holding in your hands, using your hands actually on a day to day basis. Because unless you transform your work, the way you work, you're not going to be able to transform the way your company works.
100%. One of the things I worry about too, honestly, is this creation of caste system in a way. It's use people who can use AI and benefit from it, and people honestly who don't, or in some way. Do you see that as a differentiator in the future as people get more knowledge and careers?
Yes, people always talk about AI taking away their jobs. It's not AI that's going to take their jobs. It's going to be somebody using AI that's going to take their jobs. I'm a writer, I'm a paralegal. Start using AI yourself so that you become more agile. You understand how these tools are used. Some of them are very reluctant to do it because it calls up an existential question. I am a writer. And if AI can write just as well, if not even better than me, then who am I? What
Yeah.
is my value? So I get it. It's really nerve wracking to have these tools do your job better than you can do it. But what you have to realize is that it's you doing your job in new and different ways, transform the way you work. I realize that all of my content, all of my thinking is in these models. I can ask it to be me, and it will do a pretty good job of being me, answering questions at me, creating content as me. And so I need to stay ahead of that. What's not in the model yet? What is the stuff that I'm going to constantly create? It puts more pressure on me. I can use these tools to get a head start, to think better, act faster, extend my thinking by having literally a clone of myself that I can go and ask questions of. It's pretty powerful to be able to talk to yourself.
It is powerful. And even to reflect on your own ideas, right? It allows a lot of reflections. Like, if that's what I think, is that how I come across? And it lets you reflect in a more philosophical way. No, I really love that. I think one of the things that's very different about the environment today, to be honest, is we send our kids to college or some go to have careers. And one of the things to remember is these 4 years might be fun, but it's not a stop to your learning, right? She's probably going to graduate, hopefully, and then she's going to continue to learn and evolve whatever career she chooses. We have to constantly retrain ourselves to use these new tools. Because even the generative AI tools you're talking about, they really have evolved in the last 6 to 12 months, right? It's still fairly new and they will continue to evolve.
And they will constantly evolve. And it's one of the reasons why people are very hesitant to pick it up because I don't know how to use it. It's a completely different way of thinking and working, and it's constantly changing. And on top of it, it's wrong a lot of times. So, how can I trust it? These are significant concerns and fears about adopting a new technology, which is why, again, training is so important. And you think about how much we know about how to do Google searches, how to use collaboration tools inside of our companies, using Slack. Slack is not normal. It's
Yeah.
not the way we normally think of things, right? So, the way I think we need to learn how to do work, it does require change. And for leaders, is especially scary because you're having to do this on the fly in the moment. And oftentimes you may be failing. And leaders don't like to be seen as
Mm.
failing
Yeah.
and making mistakes.
Is there a way to look competent as a leader using Gen AI or other technology?
The way to be competent in Gen AI is to say, I'm learning, but I am using it. And I'm going to demonstrate how you learn how to use it, how to avoid making mistakes, and admit that sometimes you just have no idea what you're doing. Or to say, it doesn't seem to be working. I don't know. How do I get it to work the way I want to? And put it out there. And people are like, oh, use this prompt instead.
Mm.
Prompts become very valuable intellectual property. Prompts is IP.
Interesting.
And so the way that you use prompts as a person, as a team, as colleagues, as an organization becomes extremely valuable because it's how you get work done. I encourage leaders to be comfortable being in this messy space, in this messy middle as you're learning. And the way you become a leader is to say, we are going in this direction. You're going to come along with me because that's where the future lies. And it's going to be messy and we're all in it together. We're going to figure this out together and then we're going to be okay.
Humans weren't really designed for this amount of change in such a short time. It took us 30 years for the internet technology to come about, where we are now Googling things and we're shopping online. Fairly recent in human history, right? Now I want you to think about your digital twin and how you're going to use your information to generate new ideas and create competitive advantage for your business. And it's mind boggling.
Here's the way I encourage you to think about this. With the pandemic in the spring of 2020, we went through a huge change and we had to change on a moment's notice, literally in days.
Yeah.
And we were capable of doing it. It wasn't fun. It was really just really hard for all of us to do. And we did it. We did incredibly hard things. We learned how to work remotely and we did it in a moment's notice. So if we could do that, we are capable of doing these other hard things. We just don't think we can. We are capable of sustaining and going through much more disruptive change than we give ourselves credit for. And so I say to working sessions, you all changed in a moment. You all did it because you had to. Now you're going to do it because you want to. It's a big difference.
It's much more
And
fun if
getting
you
people
want to.
aligned if you want to. And again, it's just hard because we like our comfort. We like being in our comfort zones. And yet, if you want to grow and transform, you have to leave that comfort zone. You have to go to the very edge of it and see how far you can go. So this is why I study disruption, because if you're able to deal with disruption and be disrupted and feel comfortable being uncomfortable, you're going to be at such a better advantage. Because it isn't as if generative AI is just you're going to adopt it and then you're done. It's going to constantly keep changing and adapting. And so you need to be adapting with it constantly. And if you can stay ahead at that very edge and further ahead than your competitors, that is the biggest advantage you can create.
Hmm. So many people in tech right now are lost or losing their jobs. And they're like, how do I retrain myself? What do I do? Where do I get started? And you're saying, hey, this might be a good thing. Like, you can get comfortable with being disrupted. This is your opportunity to use Gen AI tool to learn about how to be more effective.
Right.
Tell me, are there any other tips? You've studied disruption. I'm super interested in this. What do you recommend to people to make them comfortable with the uncomfortable?
One of the practices I do, again, I have certain disruption practices. One of them is to do something uncomfortable every single day.
Mm.
I think of it as having an adventure or disrupting myself. So it could be turning off my GPS and trying to navigate home. It could be trying a new way to do something that I've never tried before. It could be looking up some new technologies and trying them and knowing I'm going to have to struggle with them a little bit. Need and desire to go and experience new ways of being, of making decisions, of learning, of getting things done that feeds me. And I run towards these changes and disruptions versus saying, oh, that looks hard. I'm not going to go there.
Mm. That's super powerful, right? That is a similar analogy, actually, I heard at the gym, right? When you come to the gym, think of it as a playground. What equipment am I going to use today? Am I going to go on the slide or am I going to use the swings? I think it's just like you were saying with disruption, it's about changing your mind and saying disruption is good. I want to do this. This is like a playground. This is what life is all about. It's bringing that spice into it. And once you get past it, it makes you so much more comfortable with change. And oh, that worked out perfectly fine. It wasn't that scary after all.
Exactly. And I think the more comfortable we get doing these things, it can start with very small disruptions, things that are just outside of your comfort zone, just a little bit. And then after time, you can add more and more disruptions. Because if
Hmm.
you go through little changes, they add up to being really big changes over time.
What are some of the things that you are disciplined about doing every day?
I think my secret is I do not have my act together. I do not try to have very many routines. I sometimes fly by the seat of my pants. I'm like, oh no, I have to get something done. It may look like I'm very organized, but it's much more organic than that. A friend of mine was David Allen, who wrote the book Getting Things Done. I would tease him, I cannot use system consistently all the time. He goes, very few people can.
Right.
Don't worry about it. Are you getting things done? And I'm like, yes. And he goes, then working. So I don't even try to be perfect and 100% compliant with everything. I like to say, I make to-do lists and then I lose them.
None.
And every once in a while, I'll come back to them, look at them, and I'm very good about getting things through my to-do list. I will get things done. I'm pretty consistent about making sure I hit my deadlines and things, but I don't get everything done and I don't do it 100%. And I don't worry about it because I'm focusing on the most important things, the things that are going to make a difference, the things that are going to make a difference for my clients, for my audiences. And I'm focused on those big ideas and bringing them to the market. So that is the most important thing for me that drives me. It's can I create these aha moments for the people who care about the things I'm talking about? And the more I can do that, the more I hear feedback and the more I'm getting what I call psychic income. And that eventually leads to actual physical income too, as well.
What are the most important messages or things? Like, how do you determine what is actually going to make an impact and what won't? Because sometimes you just don't know. It's like a little act, but
You
it
don't
needs
know.
to,
You don't know
yeah,
until you try it. You
right.
don't know. And so I try a lot of things and some things work. Other things, I'm like, oh, this is never going to work. And it works out to be the best thing I could have done. So you don't know, but my gut is pretty good. I'm pretty good at guessing at things. I've been doing this for a very long time. And for the most part, I guess pretty right. I like to say that if I'm right half the time, I'm doing pretty well. And I'm probably right a lot more than that. So
Hmm.
I'm pretty happy with the outcomes.
What does your gut tell you? What the next big things, trends? What do you want the people to know about where you're going next with your message?
I think again that generative AI is yet just a very big technological change that's coming, but it's the same idea as many of the other technology changes that have come before. So go back and think about the internet, of
Yeah.
social, of mobile devices, of all these different technologies using collaborative platforms like Slack inside the workplace. We've all had to change and adjust. What helped you along the way to do that? Because this is the same thing. We've done it in the past. We can do it again. And the challenge is to say, how can you do it better and faster with each level and change that you're going through? And
Mm.
so look at change as an opportunity. Look at disruption as an opportunity to grow and transform.
So, to more opportunities to grow and transform, because that's what it's going to be all about. Charlene, thank you so much for your time today. This was so insightful, and I'm really looking forward to your book. Where can we sign up to buy it today?
You can go to my site, charlenely.com/winning with Gen AI, or just go to my site and you'll see a place there where you can sign up to get updates about the book, and it should be coming out in October.
I love it. Thank you so much.